Hey guys, it's Angela here with your Pilates primer. We're going to go through some of the basics that you will find in all of my classes. You'll find most of these things in most Pilates classes, and some of them you might not find in all classes. So we're going to start with alignment. That's the most important thing. So thinking about feet hip distance apart. So that is not way out here. Hip distance apart means the heels drop down from the center of your back pockets, lined up with your sitting bones. It's the center of your hip joint. So hip distance apart, usually you gotta bring it in a little bit. And then you're gonna think about shifting your weight towards the ball of your foot and towards the heel. Weight towards the ball of the foot and towards the heel. Without lifting the toes or the heels, notice there's a range of where we could be. You're going to find a place where your weight's about equal, 50-50 on heel and ball of foot, and equal on both legs. Then you're going to bring your awareness way up here to the hip joint, and you're going to rotate your thigh bones in and then straight ahead. And hopefully you can see this. As I rotate my thigh bones in, my kneecaps look at each other and my arches drop, and then my kneecaps come straight ahead. It's not a very big motion. Don't force it. Just explore it. If it doesn't totally make sense right now, don't worry about it. We'll work on it. Where we would like to be is kneecaps pointing straight ahead. When your kneecaps are straight ahead, some people's feet will be straight ahead. Some people's feet will be a little turned out when their kneecaps are straight ahead. So it's not just where your feet are, it's really where the thigh bone is in the hip socket. That gets the kneecaps straight ahead. And then depending on the way that your lower ankle and foot are, your feet may or may not be straight ahead. So don't force the toes straight ahead. So I'm going to say a lot of times kneecap straight ahead, center of the ankle straight ahead, but don't feel like you have to force your toes straight ahead. That's really important. Then you're going to place one hand on pubic bone, one hand on tailbone, and you're going to tuck your tail and lift your tail. So if your pelvis were a bowl of soup, you're trying to pour your soup out in front of you, and then trying to pour your soup out behind you. This will make more sense when we do it lying down. It's hard to do in standing. Just do the best you can. And you're going to find a place where you're not spilling your soup out anywhere. So some of us sort of hang out normally, dumping our soup all over the place in front of us. You're going to have to lift your pubic bone, drop your tailbone. Try not to spill your soup. Other people, the butt tuckers, are pouring their soup out behind themselves. They've usually got their knees a little crouched. You're going to find a place, again, where you're not spilling your soup anywhere. Again, this will make more sense after we do it in lying down. So, weight equal, heel and ball of foot, kneecap straight ahead, not spilling your soup. You're going to place your hands on your rib cage, the bottom of your rib cage. It's just below your bra strap. It's a hard, bony circle of bone. So when you push in, it feels hard, not squishy. And you're going to slide your rib cage to the right and to the left. This is a little tricky to find at first, and you might not have a lot of movement here. Some people are really stiff. So we're just trying to glide the rib cage side to side, leaving the pelvis in the center. So some people do better with hands on hips. Some people can find it easier with hands on ribs. Experiment with what works for you. So there's a range of where we could be. We want rib cage stacked over pelvis. If you've had kids, even if they're older now, and you always carried them to one side, a lot of times you get stuck with the ribs shifted over. So we're going to realign them on top of the pelvis. And then you're going to take one hand on your breastbone, and you're going to imagine your rib cage like a bell. So a bell is narrow at the top and it's broader at the bottom around that circle. You're going to imagine ringing your bell. You're going to lift your breastbone, and the bottom of the rib cage pops up in front. You're going to drop your breastbone in front of the ribs, and the back of the rib cage pops up. You're going to ring your bell forward and back. Some folks find hand on breastbone helps. Some folks find hand on rib cage at the bottom helps. Explore it a little bit. Don't worry, you may or may not get it this first go around. And you want to come to a place where you're not ringing your bell forward or back, but your rib cage is stacked directly over the pelvis. So if you imagine the circle at the top of your pelvis, you're going to stack the circle at the bottom of your rib cage directly over top. Most of us, it'll make us feel a little hunched forward because the upper back is rounded. Don't worry, we're going to work on that. So keeping ribs stacked over pelvis, lift your breastbone slightly. All right, just a little bit of a lift. It's not a big lower back lift. It's just lifting the breastbone, keeping the bottom of the rib cage stacked over the pelvis. Shrug the shoulders up and back and down. And then think about your head being on top of your spine. You might need to slide it back in line. Chin stays level. So folks who are really tight might find they do this to get their head upright. That'll make your neck feel lousy. You're going to slide your head back, keeping the chin level, back of the neck long. Okay, so we're going to start with that for alignment. You're going to make a little triangle with your hands and rest it on the front of your pelvis. Thumbs under belly button, fingertips over pubic bone, and the heel of the hands will be on the front of your pelvis. I'm going to say hips because that's shorter, but it's really not your hip joint. That's kind of way out here. So we're just going to breathe in and out a few times and just notice what your normal breathing is. Ideally, when we breathe in, the breastbone or the chest stays quiet. The belly might move out and in a little bit in relaxed breathing, and the rib cage might open in 3 dimensions. Depending on what's happening, we breathe in different ways. So we're going to work on a working breath in this class. So you're going to breathe into the space between your sit bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sliding your sit bones towards each other. Just keep going with that. So your sit bones are the base of your pelvis. If you had your Daisy Duke shorts on, that's right about where your sit bones are at that level in the center. It's not a big butt squeeze. So we breathe into the space between the sit bones. That's the pelvic floor, the whole pelvic floor area. We exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine bringing sit bones together. Breathing into the space between the sit bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine bringing sit bones together. Keep going with that. If you're not sure if you're doing it right, squeeze your glutes, so really tighten your bum as hard as you can, and then relax. So it's not that. It's deeper than that. It is pelvic floor. You will feel, it'll feel like your butt, but you won't feel it on the outside. And then release. Now we're going to shift our awareness to the hip bones. You're going to breathe into the space between your hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sliding your hip bones towards each other. They're not going to go anywhere. Relax. Breathe into the space between your hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sliding hip bones towards each other. It's like when you're buttoning a pair of pants that are just a little too tight, that little pull in. Breathe into the space between the hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, hip bones together. Now we're going to bring our hands up to the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. So it's just about or below the bra strap, hard, bony ring of bone that circles all the way from front to back. You're going to breathe into the circle at the bottom of your rib cage. Exhale, close the circle at the bottom of your rib cage. Relax to breathe into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Keep going with that. Ideally, you'll feel the ribs open under your hands from side to side. They actually open in 3 dimensions like an umbrella. On the exhale, you're trying to close the rib cage like an umbrella. Front to back and side to side. It's just easier to have your hands right here. One last time. Big finale, we're going to put all 3 together. So hands can either be on your rib cage or the front of your pelvis, whatever feels better to you, and you can explore it both ways. You're going to breathe into the space between sit bones, hip bones, circle at the bottom of the rib cage. So it's a long, slow, steady inhale. You're going to exhale. At the end of the exhale, sit bones together, hip bones together, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Breathe into sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, sit bones together, hip bones together, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Keep going with that. If you have some weakness in pelvic floor and abdominal muscles, this will be really hard in standing because you're lifting abdominal contents and pelvic contents against gravity. We'll do it in lying down. It'll make more sense in other positions. Don't worry about it. One last time. Nice. And then go ahead and release. And we're just going to work on finding turnout in standing or Pilates stance. So right now we've got our feet hip distance apart. We're going to bring the legs together as they get. Some legs will go all the way together, all the way down, and you're trying to get everything touching. Some legs won't do that depending on the size of your body, the contours, and how things line up. So you're going to get your legs as together as you can without doing weird stuff like feeling you have to bend your knees or twist stuff. It should feel pretty natural. If your legs bow out a little bit at the bottom, you might have your knees close together and your feet a little bit apart, and you're like, yep, that's it, my thighs are touching, but my feet don't. That's fine. Legs come together from the top down. They meet if they meet, they don't meet if they don't meet. That may or may not change over time. Then you're gonna bring your hands to the widest part of your hips. You're gonna lift the heel on your right foot, lift the toe on your right foot, and rotate out, and then straight ahead. Rotate out, and then straight ahead. So you're just rotating at the hip socket. You're pivoting on your heel. The thigh bone is rotating out in the hip socket. Release that one. Find your left leg. Hand on the widest part of the left hip. You'll lift the toes on the left leg. Rotate out and straight ahead. Hip rotation. So the thigh bone is rotating in the hip socket. The knee and the foot end up pointing out to the side slightly. It's not a big whole body turn. I was just cheating a little bit there. All right, you're going to keep the rest of you straight ahead and then release. We're going to lift the toes on the right foot. We're going to turn out to about 2 o'clock. So if you were standing on the face of a clock, 12 o'clock is straight ahead. 2 o'clock, it's just past 1 o'clock. Some folks, that's it, that's as far as they go. Some of you, especially if you were a dancer, you might be able to swing your foot way out further. We don't want that. Just go to 2 o'clock. Lift the toes on the left foot, rotate out to 10 o'clock. So this is your Pilates stance or V feet. Sometimes we'll do it in standing. Sometimes we'll do it in lying down. We'll explore that hip rotation in other positions too. But that's the basics. Again, if your legs meet, great. If your legs don't meet all the way down, that's fine. Don't force them. All right, now we're going to come into lying down. You're going to come to the top of your mat. You can either get down however you want. You can use your hands if needed, or you can take your arms one on top of another, genie arms, and they push into each other. We'll take one leg back and at a diagonal. And then maybe, only try this if you feel like you can. You can also get down however you want. You'll come down to a knee, flatten your foot, right? Again, don't force this. If your knees are dicey, get down however you need to. This will come in time. But if you have no knee issues and you feel like you can, you're just gonna sit back onto your butt and take that leg out from underneath you, okay? Again, that will come in time. One thing that's great about Pilates, the transitions are part of the workout, but don't waste any time. Go ahead and lie down on your back with your feet about hip distance apart. So again, think of those sitting bones, right? If you find that your chin is tipped up and you're looking at the wall behind you, or your head sort of not feeling supported by the floor, you can either take a folded towel or roll your mat up a bit to give your head a little bit of support. We want to keep the back of the neck long, chin towards throat. The forehead is level. So if you had a coffee cup on your forehead, you don't want to be pouring your coffee out towards the top of your head. So find that neutral position, a little bit of head support if you need it, and then scan through your body. If you imagine train tracks over your body, shoulders, center of hip joint, thigh bone, lower legs and heels line up. Again, those heels line up with the sitting bones. You're going to take that little triangle of your pelvis, of your hands rested on your pelvis. So thumbs below belly button, fingertips above pubic bone, heel of the hand on the front of the pelvis. And you're going to roll your pelvis back, flattening your back into the mat. That's, I'm going to say, pouring your soup out towards your head. Roll your pelvis forward, arching your back off the mat. That's pouring your soup out towards your feet. You're going to roll back, pouring soup out towards your head, and roll forward.
right? Just go with that. Think about relaxing the legs. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could push with your legs, or you could pull with your abdominals and your deep back muscles. We're going to try to find abdominals and back muscles. That's your core. Now maybe you could think about coming back to the center. Inhale. On an exhale, pour your soup out towards your head. Inhale, pour your soup out towards your feet. Exhale, pour your soup out towards your head. Inhale, pour your soup out towards your feet. So you're rocking on your sacrum. Keep it comfortable. If it hurts when you go too far forward, don't go that far. Or vice versa if it's when you go backwards. Come to a place in the middle where you're not spilling your soup anywhere. That's your neutral pelvis. We all have a natural curve in the lower back. If you have a bigger butt, you'll have more space. If you have a flatter butt, your back might be sort of flat on the ground. Either one is fine. Don't worry about the space. Consider where is your bowl of soup? Where is your pelvis? Don't spill your soup. And then we're going to pour our soup out to the right side and to the left side. So finding movement in the spine, a little bit of rotation. Coming back to center, we're finding a place where we're not spilling our soup anywhere. Hands can rest still on the front of your pelvis. You're going to breathe into the space between your sit bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, sit bones slide towards each other. Relax, breathe into the space between your sit bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sliding sit bones together. So again, if you're not sure what you're doing, you can squeeze your bum really, really hard. Your pelvis might roll back. That's a glute set. We don't want that. We're going to go deeper. We're going for pelvic floor. Relax, breathe into the space between your sit bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, sit bones together. We'll bring our awareness up to hip bones under your hands. You're going to relax, breathe into the space between your hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sliding your hip bones together. So it's like buttoning your tight pants. Relax, breathing into the space between your hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, hip bones together. Same thing again. Breathe into the space between your hip bones. You're going to relax, but you're not pushing your gut out towards the ceiling. Right. One more time. Breathe into space between hip bones. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, hip bones together. Now, if it works for your shoulders, bring your hands up to the circle at the bottom of your rib cage again, just below your bra strap. You're going to breathe into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Breathing into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage so it opens like an umbrella. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the umbrella, or the bottom of the rib cage. Relax, breathe in and out. And you may feel some rib cage motion. You might not feel a lot yet. That can take a little while. Big finale, we're going to combine all three together. So hands can stay on ribs or on pelvis. We're going to breathe into space between sit bones, hip bones, circle at the bottom of the rib cage. We're going to exhale, imagine bringing sit bones together, hip bones together, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Relax, breathing in, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale. At the end of the exhale, imagine sit bones together, hip bones together, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. So what looks like you're doing nothing, keep going with that. Your pelvis isn't tilting around, you're in your neutral, you're not spilling your soup anywhere. You hopefully feel some work in your abdominals. I will tell you, you always have a little more exhale than you think you do. So if you don't feel like you're working very hard, squeeze a little more air out on the exhale. One last time. And then we're going to keep the hip bones connected, so those tight pants buttoned. Bring your feet together and your knees together. You're going to inhale to the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. So we're keeping lower abdominal and pelvic floor tension on just a little bit. And we're breathing into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Belly, if you rest your hand on your belly, it's trying to hold its ground. It's not popping up to the ceiling. It's holding its ground, maybe even sinking a little closer to the floor with every exhale. Keep going with that. And then we're going to add some movement. We're going to inhale, knees apart, exhale, knees together. Inhale, knees apart, exhale, knees together. The hope and the dream, totally stable spine and pelvis. We're just moving at the hip joint, working the core muscles to support and protect the spine. One last time, and then we'll go to single leg. Just the right leg out to the side and back in. And then left, inhale out, exhale, center. So think about your bowl of soup here. With single leg, the leg is heavy, so sometimes you start dumping your soup out to the side or dumping your soup out towards your feet. You're going to hold on to the position of the pelvis using your core and protect and support the spine while you move the hips. One last time, coming back to center. Exhale, pour your soup out towards your head. Inhale, pour your soup out towards your feet. Find the place in the middle where you're not spilling your soup anywhere. Breathe in, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale, sit bones connect, hip bones connect. Close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. We'll keep that lower abdominal tension. We'll take one leg up into tabletop. If you feel like you need a little support, you can put your hand on the thigh. On an exhale, the other leg comes up into tabletop. The important thing is, did your belly pop up to the ceiling, or did your back arch so you started spilling your soup out? Go ahead and release the legs. Let's try it again. Pour your soup out towards your head and towards your feet. Come back to a place where you're not spilling your soup. Inhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Connect. We're going to keep the lower abs connected. On the next inhale, one leg to tabletop, hand to support it if you need it. On the next exhale, the other leg comes up, but don't let your belly pop, don't let your back arch. And we're going to do toe taps here. We'll inhale, tap one toe down to the mat, exhale, lift, and then the other. Keep going with that. Hands to support the legs if you need it. If you don't need it, arms can be by your sides. The hope and the dream. Stabilize, protect, and support your spine and pelvis so you're not spilling your soup anywhere. You're lengthening your hip flexor to lower the leg and then shortening. If you're getting any clicking, clunking, or popping, connect the hip bones a little more. Maybe pour your soup out towards your head just a bit. When done well and correctly, this will never hurt your back because your back's not moving anywhere. You're protecting it and stabilizing it. That's the hope and the dream. Rest a hand on your belly. Take a break anytime you need to, but if you can't, keep going. Make sure you're holding your ground with your abdominal wall. You're not driving pressure upwards. It's not like a volcano's going to erupt or you're going to shoot your button off of your pants. Last one, lower the feet down. Nice job. Exhale, roll back. Inhale, roll forward, and we'll just release. Find a place where you're not spilling your soup. You're going to interlace your fingers, hands behind your head, index fingers at hairline, thumbs along the back of the neck, elbows wide. Your head is on the mat, and you can take out your towel prop if you had it. So head is on the mat, hands are on the mat. We're going to leave the head on the mat and just nod our chins towards our throat, and then release. Let your chin fall towards your throat. If you had your coffee cup on your forehead, you would be spilling your coffee, dribbling it on your face. And then release. We're not picking the head up. We're just nodding chin to throat. One last time. We're going to keep chin towards throat. We're going to inhale on an exhale. Sit bones connect, hip bones connect. Close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Keep that. We'll inhale on the next exhale. We've got chin towards throat. We're going to use the abdominals, the rectus abdominis, to pick up the rib cage. The head's going to come with us, but it's down here that we're working, lifting the rib cage up into a C curve. My eyelashes are parallel to the floor, gaze towards my thighs, and lower back down. Inhale on an exhale. We've got chin towards throat, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage connect. Rectus abdominis is going to pick up the rib cage. Eyelashes parallel to the floor, gaze towards the thighs. So the tendency here is to pull the chin forward and try to pull yourself up with your neck. So you don't want that. We're going to nod chin to throat. You should be able to have an orange between your chin and your chest. So you're not jamming your chin onto your chest. There's an orange between your chin and chest. And then the rectus abdominis lifts the rib cage up into that C. Lower back down. If it feels a little icky in the front of your neck, press your head back into your hands. Keep pressing your head into your hands. So chin to throat, isometrically, we press head into hands as we curl up. That's a lot to think about. One last time. So that is your C curve. If you know you shouldn't do a C curve, if you've got severe osteoporosis and your doctor has told you no spinal flexion, stay flat. You'll always have the option to stay flat. I'll tell you when you don't, and it'll be an exercise that you skip. If your neck feels horrible with that, skip them until you figure it out, and sometimes you need to work one-on-one a little bit. Sometimes just going through it a few times, things will start to connect. It should not hurt your neck. If you go up and it feels bad in your neck right away, that's a problem. So don't force it. If you're like, I can do a little bit, when we get to hundreds, we'll be holding it here for a while. If you can do a little bit and then it gets uncomfortable, that's probably fatigue, so you could stay up and then lower back down. That'll never be sharp pain or headache, so it'll just be sort of a tired feeling. We're going to bring arms by our sides now, thumbs up, pinkies down. We've still got our train tracks lined up. Stretch your fingertips towards your heels. Inhale. On an exhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage connect. We're going to keep the hip bones connected. Breathe into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, arms come back down. So the arms just go as far as they can. We've got the hip bones connecting. Notice if the rib cage and bra strap want to pop up off the mat when you lift the arms. You're going to keep the bra strap and the rib cage down, and the arms just get to where they get to. One last time. Inhale, arms overhead. We're going to add to it. Exhale, hands to ceiling. Nod chin towards throat. It's still on the mat. And then we'll roll up into a C curve. So rectus abdominis lifting up if this works for you. Hands will come down just about an inch above the mat. Turn the palms down. Eyelashes parallel to the floor. Gaze towards thighs. Fingertips stretching for the wall at your feet. You're going to breathe here. A nice, slow, steady breath in and out. Ideally breathing in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Eyelashes parallel to the floor. Gaze towards your thighs. The back of the neck is long, so no chin thrusting. Look at the thighs, breathing in and out. Maybe rest a hand on your belly. Make sure you're holding your ground. Hopefully you're feeling this in the abs, not in the neck. Last one, lower back down. So that's the breathing for the hundreds, which is a real classical Pilates exercise. We will do that one in every class. And ideally it's in for a count of 5, out for a count of 5. That's a total of 10 on one breath. And we do 10 breaths that way. It seems like forever, but it's really not. It's a great exercise because once you get good at it in one version, we'll just make it harder. We're going to add to that a little bit. Okay, arms by your side, thumbs up, pinkies down. We're in neutral pelvis. We're going to inhale on an exhale. Sit bones connect, hip bones connect. Close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, hands to ceiling, chin towards throat. Come up into a C curve if it works for you. Otherwise, just stay flat on the mat. We're going to breathe in for 5 and out for 5. Eyelashes parallel to the floor, gaze towards the thighs. And then if it works for you, you could add an arm pump from the shoulder blade. No floppy wrists or elbows. Stiff, straight, strong arms. If a C curve doesn't work for you, you can stay flat. If you're up in a C, commit to it. Don't flop like a jellyfish. As soon as you start to get tired, you can lower back down. Go ahead and relax. So again, the goal is we're going to hold our ground with the abdominal wall. We're in that neutral pelvis position, and we stay there. Okay, one more thing on our backs. I promise we're almost done. I'm going to turn so you can see me. You're going to bring your legs up into tabletop. So you're in neutral pelvis, core is engaged. Legs come to tabletop, so heels a little higher than knees. Hands come to the widest part of your hips. We're going to rotate out at the hip socket. And then thighs together. Rotate out at the hip socket and then thighs together. So you'll end up with a diamond shape between your legs. and a little space between your feet. Try to just leave your feet and don't do like weird foot stuff. Okay, rotate out at the hip socket and then come back in. Lower the feet down and rest. That's your turnout. When we talk about turnout, Pilates stance or V feet, that's what we're talking about if you're in tabletop. Neutral pelvis, hip bones connect, bring the legs back to tabletop. If you have the flexibility, you'll extend your legs up towards the ceiling. Maybe you can get them straight, and maybe they're somewhere between straight and bent. Right, you go to where you can, rotate out from the hip sockets, heels pressed together. If knees are bent, you'll have a diamond shape. Come back in. If legs are straight, rotate out and come back in. If your heels touch to start, you're going to keep them touching as you turn out. If you've got legs that line up without heels touching, you try not to let the legs move further apart. Keep them as close together as you can. Find that turnout. Last one, go ahead and release. Lower the legs back down. We'll exhale, roll pelvis back. Inhale, roll pelvis forward. Just finding a little movement in the spine. Turn onto your right side. You're going to line yourself up at the back edge of your mat. Head at the back edge of your mat. Shoulders at the back edge of your mat. Hips at the back edge of your mat. If you're new to this, swing your legs to the front corner. If you've been doing Pilates for a while, you're probably not watching this video, but more advanced is legs in line with the body. To start, legs come to the front corner. You're going to stack your pelvis over top of each other. If you had headlights on the front of your pelvis, your headlights would be pointing straight ahead. We're going to breathe in to sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. We're going to exhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage connect. Core is engaged. We're going to keep that lower abdominal wall engaged, breathing into the rib cage. You're going to take your left hand, find the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis, like if you were standing with your hands on your hips. Rest your hand in that space. We'll lift the top leg up to hip height. So it's not way up here, it's just a little lift. Keep it there. Reach that left heel towards the wall at your feet and then release. Think about telescoping that left leg out of the hip socket and then release. Ideally, what you're going to feel is a little more space between the rib cage and the pelvis. You might feel the bottom rib cage or bottom side waist lifting off the mat slightly. So we're always going to try to find that elongation. Go ahead and rest briefly. And I didn't tell you this, but if you need a pillow under your head, that's fine. If your arm is comfortable here, just use your arm. If your shoulder doesn't get up here, use a pillow. We're going to add to that. We're going to lift to hip height. Pelvis is stacked, headlights straight ahead. Hip bones connected. We're going to create length. Telescope that top leg out, creating length at the side waist. We're going to find the turnout at the widest part of the hip. We're going to rotate the thigh bone out and then straight ahead. So the pelvis doesn't roll backwards. Headlights stay straight ahead, pelvis stacked. We're going to find that turnout from the ball and socket of the hip. Again, try not to do weird foot stuff, right? Just let your foot come with you. And you'll see, if you look at your foot, that your heel ends up pointing down and your toes pointing up. We're finding that turnout. We're just going about to the 10 o'clock again, right? Most people, they really have to work it to get there. Some people have tons of rotation and you have to make sure you don't go too far. Go ahead and rest the leg briefly. So that's the elongation and then the turnout. We add some fancy stuff like lifting and kicking the leg, but that's the important part. Flip to the other side, and you're going to compare how it feels. So you line up at the back edge of your mat, pillow under your head if you need it, otherwise just your arm under your head, legs to the front corner if you're new at this, pelvis stacked, so right on top of left, headlights on your pelvis pointing straight ahead, so we don't want you rolling forward or backwards. This right hand will find the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis and rest in the soft space in between. It's where your muffin top would be if you had one. We're going to lift the top leg to hip height. We're going to reach that right heel towards the wall at our feet and then release. So it's like you're telescoping your right leg out, making it longer than the left. Hopefully you feel a little more space between the rib cage and the pelvis. You might feel your bottom waist lightening on the mat. You might feel like you have no idea what you're doing. That's fine too. It might feel similar or different to the other side. Go ahead and release. So that's the elongation. We're going to add to that. Inhale on an exhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage connect. We'll lift that right leg to hip height. We'll lengthen, so reach the heel away. We're going to come to the widest part of the hip and find the turnout. Rotate out and then straight ahead. It's from the ball and socket of the hip joint. The cheat will be to roll your pelvis backwards. Just see if you can find that. Explore it a little bit. It's not weird foot stuff. It's not weird knee stuff. It's happening right up here at the widest part of the hips. Go ahead and release. Again, that's the foundation. We'll add some movement on top of that. Don't worry about the movement just yet. We're going to turn onto our bellies. Cross your hands. Rest your forehead on your hands. Okay, forehead on hands. We're going to think about, go ahead and rest your feet so that your toes are pointing in. You're on the inner edge of the kneecap. So that is having your hips rotated inwardly, internal rotation. We're going to think about rotating our thigh bones out. So you might curl your toes under, lift your thighs, rotate your thigh bones so that the inner edge of your kneecap is on the mat and the big toe side of the foot. It's not splayed out to the side like the whole inner edge of the foot. It's just towards the big toe side of the foot. You're going to imagine a powerful magnet between your inner thighs, pulling your legs towards each other. They do not need to touch. That might take quite some time. A lot of people have tight hips and low backs, so those thigh bones aren't going to touch, and that's fine. So you're on the inner edge of your kneecap. Thigh bones are thinking about heading together. Forehead is resting on your hands, looking down. So don't prop on your chin, look straight down. We're just going to breathe here. Breathe into the space between sit bones, hip bones, circle at the bottom of the rib cage. We'll exhale at the end of the exhale. Sit bones connect, hip bones connect, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Breathing in, sit bones, rib cage. Exhale, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. You might feel your pelvis press into the mat just a bit. We're going to keep the hip bones connected. Breathe in to the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. So hip bones stay connected. You might find that you can feel more here at the bottom of the rib cage. Breathe into the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Exhale, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Don't worry, it will come with time. One more time. Keep going with that. We're going to slide the hands back under the shoulders. They're right in close to your boobs, in like they're touching your boobs, your thumbs. Pull the elbows in towards each other and back towards your heels. Your gaze is towards the floor, back of the neck is long. So we're going to avoid this chin tip position. Back of the neck is long, chin towards throat. We're on the inner edge of the big toe and the inner edge of the knee. We've got hip bones connected, elbows back towards heels. So stretch the elbows towards the wall behind you, stretch the legs behind you. We're going to inhale on an exhale. We're going to peel ourselves up just to our bra strap. Keep the back of the neck long so you're not leading with your head. Your gaze is coming towards the end of your mat, depending how far you can lift your upper back. This is an upper back lift, thoracic spine we're trying to find. Lower back down. So later on, we're going to move into the lumbar spine, but right now you should feel no pressure in your lower back. We're trying to find this upper back lift. The hip bones connect, toes reach away, inner thighs connect. Pull the elbows in towards each other, back towards your heels. Peel up to your bra strap and imagine bringing your breastbone towards the wall in front of you. When you get this right, you will have no pressure or compression in your low back. Certainly no pain, but it shouldn't even be pressure. Lower back down. Inhale, exhale, toes reach away, elbows in and back. Peel up to your bra strap, breastbone forward. Could you connect those hip bones a little bit more? The cheat will be to stick your gut out, right? So when I stick my gut out, I pop up a lot higher. That's not what we want. We're finding extension with elongation, especially that upper back. Last one, lower back down. Press up to hands and knees. You're going to make like a table. Spread your fingertips out. Middle finger straight ahead, thumbs stretched towards each other. If that doesn't work for you, you go to the fists with thumbs forward,
or even forearms. If you need a little extra padding, you're going to put it just below your kneecaps so you're not right on your kneecaps. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. We're going to exhale, round everything up to the ceiling. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Tailbone curls under. Get a good look at your belly button. Push, push, push everything up to the ceiling. As you inhale and arch, arms and legs are still pushing the floor away. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. You're going to come to what you imagine is good posture. So if we were standing and not spilling our soup, right, we're on hands and knees. We don't want to be pouring our soup out in front of us with a too big of a lower back arch. We don't want to be pouring our soup out behind us with our tail tucked. So think about neutral soup, okay? I'm going to talk about the soup a lot. So another way to think of this, if you had laser beams on your sitting bones, they'd be shooting straight behind you. If you had a laser beam on your breastbone, shooting straight ahead. So we don't want to aim at the floor. Usually the problem is people are aiming at the floor in this position. So straight ahead and straight behind. The head is going to come up in line with your body, so we don't want it falling off. But it's not chin tipped up, unless you're looking at me briefly. Head is in line with body, but your gaze is at the floor between your thumbs. We're going to breathe here. Breathe into sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale, sit bones, connect, hip bones, connect, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Breathe in, sit bones, hip bones, rib cage. Exhale, sit bones, connect, hip bones, connect, close the circle at the bottom of the rib cage. Just keep going with that. Here's another one. It looks like you're doing nothing when you get it right. So you're not tucking your butt, you're not lifting your back. When you get it right, it'll feel like you're working your abdominals. The only thing I would see is the belly lifting rather than hanging down towards the floor. Again, we're not sticking our gut out. We're lifting, holding our ground a little bit as we breathe in. Exhale, connect a little more. Nice. One more time, we're going to exhale, round everything up towards the ceiling. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. You have choices. You can get up however you want, or you're going to think about working your glutes. Come up into tall kneeling. Take one leg forward, either the one that kind of wants to go forward, that's your dominant leg, or you can challenge yourself with the other leg. So for today, go with what's easy. Once you've been doing Pilates for a while, you're going to want to challenge yourself, but you don't have to do that today. Curl the back toes under. Use your hands if you need to. With an exhale, we'll come into standing, feet hip distance apart. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, out to the side. Just take a moment. Take stock of your body, your alignment, your power, your energy. Great job. So those are the basics that'll really help you understand what's going on in class. Really, the breathing is the most confusing thing. I will cue you through that in class. The more you practice it, it will become very automatic and very natural. Right now, it might feel very sort of awkward and forced and weird. Just do the best you can. It will come with time. Biggest thing is with C-curve, if you've had lots of disc issues in your neck or low back, your healthcare provider might have told you to avoid C-curve. That's not necessarily forever, it's just for a time period. But if you've been given that advice, just stay flat. Anytime we're going into a C-curve, I'll tell you, you have the option to stay flat. And if there are a handful of exercises you have to come up into a C-curve for, I'll tell you, just skip this one, but it's very infrequent. With the back bend, we want to avoid compression in the lower back. We're thinking about elongating. The reason that folks get compressed in their low back with the back bending is because we have a lot of mobility at a couple of segments of the lumbar spine. They bend backwards really easy, so we end up dumping all the movement to where we move easy. And what we're trying to learn how to do is to distribute that load through the whole spine. And then the turnout, you'll start to figure that out with the hips. It's a little bit weird. It takes a little figuring out. So that is it. Good luck with this. You could revisit this video anytime. Ideally, try to do it once or twice before you jump into a class, certainly at least once. It will help you along with in class, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.